Hey guys, welcome to episode 5 of the Players First YouTube channel, where we put players' needs first and help them reach their full potential. So, been talking about limiting factors. Dove into it with our question 2 weeks ago. Running a little bit behind. I'll get episode 4 and 5 up this week. So, the place I want to start with this question, like, where are you going to start with your limiting factor? What is your limiting factor? Is I want to start kind of macro and then work to the micro and get practical. And I will speak from my scope, which is strength and conditioning and youth player development. But on the macro level, I think being realistic with what is truly preventing you from reaching your goals is a good place to start. I think auditing those around you, coaches, family members, friends, people you respect, and honestly ask them, like, hey, this is my goal. What do you think is keeping me from achieving that? I think once you really figure out what that one thing is, or the handful of things, then you map a plan to improve those things, but you have to figure out what feedback you're going to use to figure out if it's getting better. So let's say this. I am a high school baseball player, and I want to make my high school team. And I am in 7th and 8th grade, or say I'm going into my freshman year. Tryouts are coming up here in a couple of weeks. I want to make the team, so I need to audit and figure out what's going to put me in the best position to succeed from reaching that goal. And maybe it's I need to improve my skill. Maybe I need to be a better hitter. Maybe I need to be a better pitcher. Maybe that's what we need to work on. Maybe I need to get stronger. Maybe I need to get bigger. Maybe I need to get faster. Once you figure out what those things that you need to work on, then again, map a plan to get better at those things. And then once you've gotten that plan put together, figure out what feedback you're going to use. So I'll use an example of that's not so good. Say I want to make my high school team. It's pretty much true of baseball at every level. If you can hit, you'll play. They'll find a position for you. And you're like, okay, I want to become a better hitter. Maybe I use my batting average as my feedback to see if I'm improving. And I play on the weekends. I see what my batting average is. And some weekends I do really well, some weekends I don't really do very well. And the reason that batting average is not your best choice to see if you're getting better as a hitter is because it's subjective. And I talk about this a lot with all of the kids that come into the gym. But the reason it's subjective is you could have a good process, good swing, good approach, hit the ball really hard, and you could have a bad outcome. So center fielder dives, makes a great play, shortstop makes a backhand play in the hole and throws you out. Like, you could do everything right and then still get out. And so that can lead to frustration, and it can lead to feeling like my swing is off, my mechanics are bad, my approach is bad, whatever it may be. But in reality, you don't have a ton of control over your batting average because it's subjective, meaning it's relative to the people you play against. So if you really cared and wanted batting average to be what your measurable is to track, go play rec ball, go play Little League, go play in a league where the talent isn't very high, so your batting average will be very high. Because if you are pretty good and you're playing against kids that aren't so good, then you're probably going to have a really high batting average. And so I think using that as a measurable to track is not a good option. Specific to, let's switch gears, say we're a pitcher and we want to play at the next level. I'm a high schooler and I want to play at the collegiate level. Same idea with ERA. Like, you don't really have a ton of control over your earn run average, but velocity you do. And I think a lot of coaches believe that that's not the best route, or that's changing. I'd say that there still are coaches that say velocity doesn't matter, but if you look at the players who pitch for the high school team, if you look at the guys who play at the collegiate level, and you look at the guys who play at the professional level, they all throw hard. I think it's the good place to start. And then if you want to make sure that you not only are getting the opportunities to pitch, but continuing to get the opportunities, you have to execute, command, get people out. So, those are some of the examples of choosing the right measurable, choosing the right objective measure to figure out if you're getting better. So that's kind of on that macro level, figuring out, okay, what's keeping me from achieving my goals. And I think that's a very easy thing to focus on. I think the one that's actually harder to focus on is, what are my strengths? What am I good at? How can I make sure I maintain those strengths and make sure that those are part of my tool belt or my skill set? Maybe my speed is really, really good, but my hitting isn't so great, or maybe my arm is really, really weak and I need to improve my throwing velocity, but I'm really fast. So making sure that you're not completely ignoring all of the tools that you need to play at the next level, but making sure that you have a holistic and comprehensive plan to attack all of the above is going to be your best bet. So from ID3's perspective, from a strength coach's perspective, from a performance coach's perspective, here's the thought process. Here is how we break it down. And at least my current philosophy, my philosophy has changed over the years as I've learned more, experienced more, worked with more athletes. But I really believe this is where it starts. There's two things. First and foremost, relative strength. So a simple way to test this is, can you do 10 bodyweight push-ups with perfect form? It's your own body weight and your strength is relative to that. Can you do 10 bodyweight pull-ups? Can you do 10 bodyweight squats? All of these are examples of different ways that you can test your relative strength, and you need to improve that. And so relative strength, meaning it's relative to your body weight. I spoke about some of those numbers that you're going to want to hit. Super simple off the top of your head. You should be able to bench press 1 1/4 your body weight. You should be able to deadlift 2 1/4 your body weight. You should be able to squat 2 times your body weight. Those are some of the simple ones. There's more advanced ones. There's other ways to measure this, but this is a really simple way to start, and I want to keep things simple because it is scary attacking your weaknesses. It feels overwhelming. You feel like you're not good at it. You feel like you're never going to get any better. So starting with something simple is a good place to start. So relative strength. You would be very surprised in the female athletics world, the amount of female athletes that cannot do a single bodyweight push-up. Upper body strength is a huge obstacle, and it's really hard for female athletes to do, so they never practice it, and it becomes a huge weakness. For our softball players, that could lead to a potential increase in the chances of having an injury to our arm, and then it's going to severely limit our power at the dish. It's going to severely limit our ability to throw hard, whether it's overhand or underhand. Upper body strength is a huge area for the female athletes to improve. Lower body strength for the female athlete is actually pound for pound. Female athletes are just as strong as male athletes. It's just male athletes are larger. And so pound for pound, there are clients that are at ID3 that are just as strong as the strongest male athletes in the gym. So, getting stronger is a great place to start for that female athlete, and it's typically an area that's skipped and overlooked. So relative strength, great place to start. The second one is a little bit more complicated, and it doesn't really, wouldn't really make sense as just talking about it. It would have to be shown to you, but is what's called movement capacity. Another way that I think I've heard of it been termed as is movement literacy. So you have fundamental and basic movements that the body is capable of, and that's like squatting and lunging. If you are unable to do those movements properly, then you are going to be severely limited when it comes to your swing mechanics, your running mechanics, your throwing mechanics, all the above. Because if you don't know how to do those fundamental movements, then your body's going to find a way to compensate. And sometimes those compensations are good, and really, really good athletes are typically really, really good compensators. But if we continually compensate for a very long period of time, and we compensate when our body has really poor capacity or strength and endurance, then it's going to increase our chances to have an injury. So movement capacity is really easy to screen. It's really easy to teach, and it's a great place to start. And the younger you start with that, the better. You can teach your kids at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, like how to do movements properly, and it's only with their body weight, and it's typically a great place to start as far as teaching, building a really, really good athlete. This is going to be a future topic that I'll go over. I think there's a huge assumption that goes on with player development when it comes to movement capacity of just go play multiple sports. You'll learn all the movements properly, and then you'll be a really, really good athlete. I think that can help, that can actually work with a certain population of people who are just born with the natural genetic gifts for body control and kinesthetic awareness and proprioception and all those kind of complicated terms of just naturally athletic. But there's a large percentage of athletes that it just doesn't come naturally. So if we break things down to a more simplistic level, you can give them a better foundation to build their athleticism on top of. So those are the two first places that I would recommend starting. If you feel completely lost and you don't know where to go, find a strength coach, find a good strength coach, find a good sport coach, find somebody who understands human anatomy, find somebody who understands what's called motor control, like how our brain controls our body. Find somebody who has worked with other athletes and seen them progress from 8, 9, 10 years old to 18, 19, 20 years old. Like those people are the ones that probably have a good grasp on player development and can point you in the right direction. Once you've found those people, find the objective numbers to hold them accountable. Typically a good coach is going to be expensive, and I think a really great way to hold them accountable to, are you actually helping me, is, are my objective numbers getting better? I think that the caveat with that is you need to make sure that you're working extremely hard, doing everything you possibly can to get better every single day, and leave no doubt in your mind that, hey, I followed your plan to a T. I did every rep. I took care of my diet. I took care of my sleep, hydration, all of those things, and I still didn't get any better. What the heck? What's going on? Why am I paying you all this money? So, when it comes to, attacking your limiting factor, I think the most common area is those first two. And then this third area, it's more so geared towards the male population, but I think in general, it's just the possession of muscle mass. And that sounds really weird the way I just termed that, but like lean muscle mass. Typically we talk about body weight, where you look at your male athletes. Like if you are a high school athlete and you want to be better than everybody else in your sport, like just be bigger. That's a good place to start. Well, once we get to past our freshman, 8th grade, 9th, and 10th grade, if you are a bad big, like I was when I was in high school, that could start to hinder you, where that's going to limit your ability. And so we want to make sure that we have a ton of strength, and we want to make sure we have a lot of lean muscle mass, because there's a really big difference between the average high school athlete, college, and professional when it comes to that muscle mass component. And that's true for all athletes, whether you are a male or female. You need to build what's called functional mass. It actually helps you with your sport, and that's another way of saying muscle mass. We need to build muscle, and we need to do it the right way. So the way we do that, once we have our plan, once we have our limiting factor, once we know what we're going to track, we get into the gym. That's like a really, really important component. We're not just hopping in the cage. We're not just taking a bunch of hacks. We're not just throwing bullpens. We're putting together a well-rounded, holistic program to attack all of the variables that we know matter, and strength training is one of the big ones. So to complement our strength training, we have to make sure that our diet's on point. I am not a registered dietitian, but my recommendations to all the athletes that come in is make sure you're eating enough calories that when you do work out, your body can use that fuel to then rebuild the muscle mass, the muscle that you're trying to regenerate as you go through your workout. So think of your workouts as your stimulus to build mass, and then think of your diet as the fuel. And majority of athletes, number one, don't eat enough calories, especially in the male population. And then once you figure out that whole, I'm eating enough calories, then you need to tweak and adjust the nutritional density of those calories. So we want to start off with calorically dense food, so we can make sure we're getting enough calories in our system. And then we want to hone it in and clean it up and get rid of the fast food and get rid of all the junk that we're eating. Make sure we're eating all of the foods that we know are really good for us, and we're going to really see that muscle mass build even faster as you start doing that. So thanks for bearing with me. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and looking forward to continuing this YouTube channel. Any feedback, any questions, feel free, comments, DM me on Instagram, email me. I'm more than happy to help, and I want to help as many athletes as possible.